Right.
Madam Secretary, you're a lawyer, President Obama's a lawyer, I'm a lawyer, and NSA spying on Americans violates the Fourth Amendment. Couldn't be plainer. If you want to spy on Americans, you get a warrant. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that we're finally taking stock of the laws that we passed after 9/11. I voted for some and I voted against some. And people are saying, wait a minute, we did all of this in an emergency, in a hurry, because we were, understandably worried and scared. And now we need to take a step back and figure out how we make sure that the balance between liberty and security is absolutely right for America.
Different questions. When you go out and you seize American stuff, you have to have a warrant. And NSA was seizing American stuff, no warrant. And there are two options: either amend the Constitution or you get a warrant. That wasn't done. So what should the American people think?
Well, I think that the laws that were passed, again, post 9/11, gave very broad authority. And that authority was passed by the Congress. It was overseen by the FISA courts, and it was endorsed by executives in two administrations, both Bush and Obama. And I think what has happened is people have said, okay, the emergency is over, and we want to get back to regular order. We want to make sure that we're not being spied on, that our privacy is not being violated. So we want you to keep us safe. We want you to protect us, but we don't want Americans to be in any way fearful of their own government's actions.
I don't think any American wants to be unsafe, and I think every American would want to give the authority to the government to seize things constitutionally. The problem is we have this funny little thing called the Fourth Amendment, and it's actually quite plain. And I know everyone on Capitol Hill is trying to scurry and say that we've got these laws, and I hear you too. But the fact is that the Fourth Amendment is plain. It says you need a warrant.
Well, I think what you're going to find with the laws that are now being amended and passed, one was just passed in the House, that the Congress is trying to square Americans' constitutional right under the Fourth Amendment and the necessity for information that can be connected to terrorist activity here at home or abroad. It's a really difficult balancing act, but you're 100% right that we have to make some changes in order to secure that privacy, that constitutional right to privacy that Americans are due.
All right, Sergeant Tahmooressi, he's a Marine. He's sitting in prison in Mexico since March 31st. Mexico has not fast-tracked the judicial process. He's there after making an accidental turn. What can the United States do, or what should the United States be doing to help this Marine get fast-tracked through the judicial system because it was an accidental turn into Mexico?
We should be doing, and I assume we are, I'm not there, so I can't speak directly to it, but we should be doing, or I can tell you what I would be doing, burning up the telephone wires, sending, envoys, not just our ambassador, but others coming in, talking to the highest levels, Mexican officials, making it clear that this is really important to us. We work with our counterparts, our friends in Mexico on a lot of issues. Obviously, it's something that is in our interest to do it, as it is in theirs. But when this kind of action happens, and somebody who, as you say, made an accidental turn, who is serving our country, ends up in a prison, that is just unacceptable.
Would you expect that if you were still Secretary of State and you made a phone call that they would get on this immediately?
Well, I'm not sure it would be only one phone call. We might have to make a couple of them and call everybody that we could.
But we have enough of diplomatic muscle with Mexico that this doesn't have to drag on this long.
Well, again, I don't know the specifics, but I certainly expect that everything is being done that can be done, but maybe we need to raise the decibels a little bit more.
All right. Angela Merkel, Chancellor of Germany, is very upset that we were bugging her phone. Should she be?
Yes, she should be. That was absolutely uncalled for, and I've said that before. There is work that we need to do with the Germans and inside Germany. I well remember that some of the 9/11 hijackers got some of the training and some of the plotting went on in Hamburg, Germany, and we weren't able to penetrate that, neither were our allies in the German intelligence service. That has nothing to do with Angela Merkel's cell phone, and that should be off limits.
The sexism in politics. I agree there's sexism in politics. You write about it in your book. And at one point you write that the Obama campaign, after John McCain selected Sarah Palin, that they called you and wanted you to issue something that was dismissive of her, and you said no.
That's right, I did. And I write about it in the book because I want to make clear, number one, that I don't think attacking women for being women or for trying to get the votes of other women makes a lot of sense. And I think it's neither right nor smart. And so I made clear that I wouldn't do that. And shortly after that, the campaign also agreed with it. Because I do believe that sexism is still a problem. It's not just in politics. It's in journalism and business and all kinds of human endeavors in our country. And we have to call it out wherever we find it. Even with our friends, we have to say, you know what, that's a line you shouldn't cross.
Is that done, though? I mean, one of the most striking things to me, look, I think there were terrible sexist things said about you. I mean, I have no doubt about it. But perhaps I think the one that I sort of put in a compartment all its own is that Governor Sarah Palin, there was a media article and many people ran with it, in which it said that she was not the mother of her special needs child. And I thought the silence was deafening. I was hoping that a woman would speak up. I was hoping that a Democratic woman would speak up, but the silence was absolutely deafening.
Well, I could not agree with you more, Greta, that those kinds of personal attacks, which I've had more than my share of because I have been in the political arena, are, despicable, and they should be called out. There's so much that moves so quickly in a presidential campaign, as you know so well. I can't speak to who did or who didn't say anything, but I am absolutely with you that any kind of personal ad hominem or ad womanum attack should be repudiated.
It seems to me that that would at least help some of the politics for women if people would cross parties and actually speak up, because it would make it unsafe then for people to be critical within their own party and actually would focus on the issues. It would sort of get, I think that would sort of, make it safer for women to be candidates.
I think that's a really good idea, and I think we ought to try to enlist more women and men to do just that, and it ought to be across the aisle, and it ought to be from all segments of society. We don't do any service to ourselves, to each other, to young women coming up, if we let those kinds of comments stand, if we ignore the double standard, which still makes it very difficult for a lot of young women to feel that they have a role in the public sphere because of the way they're judged. So I'm with you on that, and maybe we could work together to try to get some kind of pact or agreement that people will speak up as we go forward in politics.
I read your book, and I thought that actually I was disturbed by this. Richard Holbrooke, who served our nation with great distinction in many ways, he helps handle the war in Bosnia, negotiate the Dayton Accords, that when he was working for you, people over at the White House would sometimes roll their eyes at him. And to me, I thought the arrogance of those people at the White House not respecting his contribution, that bothered me.
I think it was related to age. Just like we were just talking about what's related to gender, I think a lot of younger people, and I wouldn't exclude any part of society, wouldn't be just at the White House or any one place, may not appreciate some of the struggles that our country has gone through, even in fairly recent times.
But it was a know-it-all. And the way I read it in your book is that these and I take it wasn't the president, but I mean someone below the president. You don't name them, but the arrogance that they thought they knew better. And I think that, and actually, I think that makes it hard to sort of govern if your staff thinks that they're such know-it-alls.
Well, I think part of it was Richard's experiences in Bosnia and his experiences going back to Vietnam, which he often talked about and drew comparisons with, were not understood to be as relevant as Richard and I thought they were, because we both had lived through both of those experiences. First in Vietnam as young people, he was a diplomat, and then with the war in Bosnia. I view it as, as kind of a missed opportunity, perhaps, for people who didn't have the personal experience to have learned more. But one thing about Richard Holbrooke, he was indefatigable. And he was used to people, saying, okay, Richard, it never stopped him. He just kept going. I also talk in the book how he followed me into a ladies' room in Pakistan once because he was trying to get me to agree to something, and I was still thinking about it, and he thought I needed to agree right then. He was not bothered by any of this. I was the observer who thought, what a shame that people aren't really listening to someone who's one of the great diplomats of our time.
All right, President Obama has called the IRS scandal a phony scandal. Is it a phony scandal?
Well, I think that anytime the IRS is involved, for many people, it's a real scandal. And I think, though, that there are some challenges that rightly need to be made to what is being said, and I assume that the inquiry will continue. So I don't have the details, but I think what President Obama means there is there really wasn't a lot of evidence that this was deliberate, but that's why the investigation needs to continue.
But it's really hard not to say it's deliberate when you have, now we find out that there are 2 years of pertinent emails missing. So it's really, it would be almost irrational not to be extremely suspicious.
Well,
and so it does, so I wouldn't say phony. I would say this is real to many Americans.
Well, I think maybe the right thing to say is let's investigate it, but let's do it in as nonpartisan, as fair-minded, fair and balanced as we can.
I've heard that.
Because we want to know what the facts are.
But if you call it phony, you're trying to throw the dog off the scent.
Well, but I think not just the president, but anybody who says that is basically saying, the circus around these investigations, and you know that, you're a long-time observer, are really kind of confusing what is happening. And it's important to get back to very professional inquiries that can't be accused of politicizing because somebody may be worried about the answer they get or they don't get. And let's try to find out, what the facts are.
Secretary Clinton, thank you. I read the book. Of course, I traveled on many of these trips, so it's fun read. Thank you very much. And that concludes our special joint interview.
Madam Secretary, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Brett. My pleasure. Thank you.
Interesting back and forth.
Thank you, Greta.
And we'll be back.